Good day, students. Welcome to Liceo de Cagayan University College of Arts and Sciences, Department of Natural Science, in your subject, Environmental Science. My name is Kimberly D. Alvarez, your instructor for this subject. So today's discussion is another important nutrient cycle happens in the ecosystem and the easiest way to remember the water cycle. The water cycle constitutes or comprises 60 to 90% or 60 to 96% of the weight of all living things. Differs from the other cycle because here water remains unchanged unlike in other cycles. Example, in carbon cycle, carbon takes the form of carbon dioxide. Question: why water is important and why does it matter? Water is pretty darn important for all living things. Your body is more than one half water. And if we were to take a look at your cells, we'd find they were over 70% water. So you, like most land animals, need a reliable supply of fresh water to survive. Our body uses water in its cells, organs, and tissues to help regulate temperature and maintain our bodily functions. Because your body loses water through breathing, sweating, and digestion, it is important to rehydrate by drinking fluids and eating foods that contain water. So, here in the water cycle, there are uh, steps to follow. So the first steps in the water cycle is evaporation. So evaporation is what we call the liquid to gas. The process wherein liquid turns to gas. No? The process wherein liquid turns to gas or vapor. Evaporation happens when a liquid turned into a gas. It can be easily visualized when rain puddles disappear on a hot day or when our clothes dry in the sun. So in these examples, the liquid water is not actually vanishing. It is evaporating into a gas called water vapor. In addition, evaporation occurs when sunlight warms the surface of the water. The heat from the sun makes the water molecules move faster than and faster until they move so fast they escape as a gas. So the second step in the water cycle is condensation. Now, condensation is a process by which water vapor or gas in the atmosphere turns into water or liquid state. So it is the opposite of evaporation. Now, this stage is very important because it is a cloud formation stage. Cool temperatures are essential for condensation to happen because as long as the temperature in the atmosphere is high, it can hold the water vapor and delay condensation. As water vapor rises into the atmosphere, they mix up with very tiny particles of dust, soot, and salt, which are all particulate matter in the atmosphere. So these tiny particles are called aerosols. As the surrounding temperatures fall or cool, the water vapor turns into very tiny particles of water and ice crystals. The water particles bump into the aerosols and stick together. As more and more water particles and aerosols stick together, clouds are formed. This process is known as coalescence. Coalescence. So, the third step in the water cycle is precipitation. So, this is simply the various water forms present in the atmosphere or what we call ang pag-ulan. So, no? It's usually falling as snow, rain, sleet, and hail. Sometimes it can represent as fog and may not fall as rain does, but they are all classified as precipitation. So the next step in the water cycle is what we call the surface runoff. Much of the water that returns to Earth as precipitation runs off the surface of the land and flows downhill into streams, rivers, ponds, and lakes. Small stream flows into larger streams, then into rivers, and eventually the water flows into the ocean. So another steps in the water cycle is what we call the infiltration or the process where rainwater soaks into the ground through the soil and underlying rock layers. Some of this water ultimately returns to the surface at springs or in low spots downhill. Some of the water remains underground and is called groundwater. As the water infiltrates through the soil and rocks layers, many of the impurities in the water are filtered out. So this filtering process helps clean the water. No, water can be absorbed by the soil and may stay in the soil for a long time until it gradually gets evaporated. If there is a lot of vegetative over green plants, the infiltrated water can also be absorbed by plant roots and later transpired. So infiltration occurs in the upper layers of the ground but may also continue farther downwards into the water table. So another step in the water cycle is what we call the transpiration. This is a process where plants remove water through its stomata in the leaves. This is the process of evaporation in plants is also called the evapotranspiration, or as I've said in the recycling of nutrients, no, evapotranspiration is wherein plants releases its sweat, no, or itong pagsingot sa plant or ang paghamog. Kabantay mo sa every morning nga magbasa ang atong plants. That's what we call the process of the transpiration between of plants. So this is the interplay, no, on what is the water cycle, as you can show in the diagram. So this is the process wherein the steps in the water cycle happen. Okay, that's the end for the water cycle. Thank you for listening for this topic.